A warm welcome to Diski Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I ask that you please do subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, we discuss all things Bafana Bafana. So, on today's episode, we discuss all things Bafana Bafana versus Ethiopia in the World Cup Qualifiers. So, they will travel to Ethiopia, which then they will contest against Ethiopia in the first game, and then come back home to play on Tuesday against Ethiopia. So, with regards then to Bafana Bafana, Hugo Broos has trimmed down the squad to the 23 man. So with regards then to the 23 men that he has decided to go with this time around against Ethiopia are the goalkeepers. We've got Ronwen Williams, we've got Veli Motwa, and then we've got Bruce Vuma. Those are the three goalkeepers that he's gone with. So he's kept the very same goalkeepers, so no surprises there. And then when we have a look at the defenders, he's gone with Mobi, Hlanti, Blom, Ngobo, Mashego, Reuck, Lebusa, and Ulu. So with regards then to those defenders, the big question is, where is Lila K? You know, that question still remains, especially when he's now gone and picked Hlanti in the squad. We'd like to think that Lila K has been the better of the two left backs and has been so solid and has been so consistent for Mamelodi Sundowns with regards to the clean sheets, the assists, and how he imposes himself, especially in that left back position when he looks to work his way well up into vertical zone 1. So from a consolidation perspective, he's done really well. And then when he works his way up into the final third, from a qualitative perspective, when he delivers those crosses, he's been doing really well for Mamelodi Sundowns. But anyway, that's what Hugo Broos has gone with. And then moving into the midfielders, we've got Mvala, we've got Zuke, we've got Brooks, Musele, Mart, and Mukwena. So with regards then to that, very surprising that Zuke has been picked a part and parcel of those midfielders, especially considering the fact that you pick a Zuke and he's left out Duduzim Tanzani. Maybe then when you have a look at the amount of defensive-minded midfielders that he already has there with the Musele and Vala, maybe then leaving Zuke out and including Duduzim Tanzani would have been a lot better, especially considering what Duduzim Tanzani gives you, you know, as he is a player that can assume the responsibility and role of a playmaker. So then very disappointed that Duduzim Tanzani is not a part and parcel of this 23-man squad. And then when we move into the forwards, you got Kutumela, Hlongwane, Makgopa, Litswalo, Pule, and Mabasa. You know, so the key name, which is obviously missing there, is Percy Tau, as he is still injured, so he's not fully fit yet to join part of this Bafana Bafana squad. So those are the 23 men who will do battle in the back-to-back fixtures against Ethiopia. But let's move on then to Ethiopia and have a look at their 23-man squad and some of the key players for Ethiopia. So with regards to Ethiopia then, they have a 25-man squad, and the goalkeepers they've gone with is Shanku, they've got Tasiu, and then they've got Fasil Michael, who is normally their number one goalkeeper. And then when we move into defense, they've got Tunjo, they've got Hamid, they've got Ramadan Yusuf, Desta Yohannes, which is one of their key defenders, and then they've got Yared Bea, and then they've got Tamene, who is also another instrumental player when it comes to their defensive line. And then they've got Debebe, and they've got Owl. So with regards to that defense, then their most key player within defense is Tamene, very experienced player for this Ethiopian side, you know, and the last time out against Zimbabwe, he actually scored the penalty that won them the 3 points in the dying minutes of the game. So he's a very pivotal player, which forms part and parcel of the spine of this Ethiopian side. And then when we move on to the midfielders, we've got Emmanuel, Johannes, you've got Endusho, you've got Panom, you've got Mahamud, you've got Dagnachu, you've got Solomon, you've got Guzka, and then the ever so important Shimeles Bekele, who is their playmaker, who normally pulls strings in the heart of midfield. You know, he normally wears number 18, short, and very, very confident on the ball. It's actually a player that plies his trade in the Egyptian Premier League. He's a player who I thought would have been plying his trade within the DStv Premiership by now, especially when you look at his technical skill set and with regards to how he assumes that playmaking role for Ethiopia. And then when we have a look at the forwards, you've got Emmanuel Michael, you've got Kebede, who was part and parcel of Bidvest at some point, and then he also played for University of Pretoria within the NFD at that time. So this is an experienced player for this Ethiopian side, who is one of their key players and a player who knows a lot about South African football. So when it comes to this Bafana Bafana side, he will know a thing or two. And then you've got Abel Yalawe, you've got Sharnate Guzka, you've got Tafese, and then you've got Abu Bakr Nazir. So that is the options that they possess within that forward line, with Kebede being very, very instrumental to this Ethiopian side. So when you do have a look at the spine then and the important three players, you've got Tamene, who plays in the heart of defense, you've got Bekele, who plays as their playmaker, who normally pulls strings, and then you've got Kebede, who then plays up front. And just to note, you know, because a lot of people would underestimate this Ethiopian side, they do have 3 points from 2 games. They beat Zimbabwe in the second encounter. In the first encounter, they played against Ghana, and even that goal that Ghana scored was a shot by Wakasu outside of the box, and Fasil struggled to actually get a hold of the ball, and the ball crept in between his legs. So it was a mistake more than anything. Ghana in that game weren't penetrative, and they struggled to create clear-cut chances. So this Ethiopian side are no pushovers. They are a side that's actually going to come out, they're going to fight, and they're going to combat. But something to note with this Ethiopian side, which is actually very beautiful to see, is how they institute this free-flowing passing game, you know. So their passing patterns and their triangulation at different phases of the game are quite impressive. So they are a side that are going to put the ball on the ground and they're going to play. That's what I personally enjoy about this Ethiopian side, and how confident they are on the ball, and they are not afraid of anybody. So they are going to come out and they're going to play. So people shouldn't underestimate this Ethiopian side. But anyway, let's move on then to a tactical preview with regards to Bafana Bafana and the 11 players I would be looking to start with going into this encounter. So for consistency in goals, we'd keep Ronwen Williams. So I would personally look to approach this game with a 4-2-3-1. And yeah, so in goals, we've got Ronwen Williams, and then a back four, I would have Blom at right back. I think he's been doing really, really well for Kaizer Chiefs. I think he deserves to actually have his debut. And the two centre halves, you have Reuck as a right-sided centre half, and then I'd have Lebusa in there. So I'd have them there because on club level, they're doing really well together. They've kept quite a few clean sheets, and I think they understand each other very well, you know. So from a defensive perspective, and whenever they look to build up play, so from the build-up phase and working the ball into consolidation phase into midfield, they've got a very good understanding, you know, and they also cover each other very well. So when Lebusa goes, Reuck would often be the cover, and vice versa. So very important that in the heart of defense, you've got two players that understand each other very, very well. And then at left back, look, Nico Mobi started there the last time, and I think Ghana he had a much improved performance in comparison to the game that he had against Zimbabwe. But personally, I would look to start a left-footed player in here. You've got Mashego, you've got Hlanti. So I would also go in this left-back position. Away from home, I would go with Hlanti because of his experience, and especially considering that we'll be playing away, and you don't want to put too much pressure on Mashego, especially when you're playing away from home. And when you look at Hlanti is a player who's got that experience. He's played at the AFCON, and he's also played within CAF for Wits in previous times. On the right-hand side, Blom has also played in CAF Champions League. So they do have that experience when it comes to playing on the continent and traveling, So Mashego doesn't as of yet, so I wouldn't start him for this game. Just for an experience perspective, and also regarding the fact that Mashego tends to bomb on forward a lot more than Hlanti. So for this game, I'd look to keep a compact back four and keep the tactical shape and discipline, because away from home, you don't want to be too open and too expansive. You don't want to concede too many chances against this Ethiopian side. So when you keep a solid base of a back four, then you give yourself a chance to keep a clean sheet, which is very, very important. So that's what I'll do in the back four. And then when you have a look at it in the heart of midfield, I would go with Umukwena, a double pivot of Umukwena and Yusuf Mat. Yusuf Mat has been doing really well for Sekhukhune, and even in the previous encounters, he's had very good performances, so much so that he picked up a Man of the Match award recently, in a DSTV Premiership encounter. So this is a player who's growing into his own, and he also wears the captain's armband for Sekhukhune currently. So a player who's doing really well. Mukwena as well keeps growing in that heart of midfield, both for SuperSport and Bafana Bafana. He has very dominant and consistent displays within the heart of midfield. And I think the pair of them are so very comfortable and very good on the ball, especially when it comes to working the ball from consolidation phase and then looking to find those passes into the half spaces or into the wide channel. So those are the two players I would go with in the heart of midfield, and I think they are the best options. And I think also against an Ethiopian side who love to play, I think it's going to be very important that we command the midfield, we put our foot on the ball, and we look to take a hold of this game against Ethiopia, because I just think that if you give this Ethiopian side a chance to start playing and start dictating terms, I think that will put us under pressure, and which will then see us coming under a lot of pressure, and this Ethiopian side will start creating chances, which is not what you want, So when you have a compact back four with two more or less defensive-minded fullbacks, yes, they can bomb forward, but they'll look to keep the shape. And then you have Yusuf Mat starting as the defensive midfielder, and then Mukwena playing alongside him. So it being a hybrid system in a sense where whenever we do have the ball, yes, Mukwena can look to push, into the heart of midfield, further forward in vertical zone 3, so further up into the central pocket of space whenever the game does allow and it opens up for him. And whenever then he needs to tuck right in next to Yusuf Mat, he will do that. So I think then from a midfield perspective and a qualitative perspective, those two as a double pivot in there tick all the boxes. And then when we have a look at the three that I would go with. So coming into this, it's just, like I mentioned previously, when it comes to Bafana Bafana, we tend to approach a lot of games without a playmaker, which is a problem for me, because I think then Zwane would have been perfect, as a 10 within this team. But Zwane is not here, so we have to go with the options that we do have. So, you do have a Brooks, but Brooks is more of an 8, he's not a 10. And also, you want to be aggressive when you play against Ethiopia, you know, because another thing is it's a chance for us to get 3 points. And I just think our mentality has to change whenever we travel and we go play away, you know. With regards to the desire, I think the desire should always be 3 points. Yes, we should be cautious in certain parts and certain phases, you know, especially when we look at the defense and how compact we can be. But we should also look to go out and like attack the game and try to get those 3 points. So as a 10, come second strikeout, go with Kutumela in there, who I think has been doing well with Mamelodi Sundowns. I think starting him in there would bode really well, because then what would this do is it would allow us to have a penetrative player in vertical zone 3, especially working his way up into zone 14, and have a player centrally, you know, just behind the striker, who will be a lot more penetrative and a lot more forward thinking, as opposed to having maybe a Brooks in there who isn't as penetrative when it comes to the final third. So I'd have Kutumela in there, and then Kutumela in there, yes, of course, and then start with Pule coming off the right-hand side, where he could start as an inverted winger, where he would always look to come in off vertical zone 5 into his favorite left foot and occupy that half space, which is the right-sided half space, which is vertical zone 4, look to come in onto his favorite left foot and look to get those shots at goal, and look to go one-on-one, start out wide, and look to beat his man coming in. And then on the left-hand side, I would start Uhlongwane, who did very well against Ghana, who would often start wide and had the beating of his man, and can also come in, and he scored the goal as well. So then when you have a look at these two wide players, they play as inverted wingers who would have an eye for goal, which is very important. Pule being the more creative one, Hlongwane being the more goal-orientated winger. So I think then it gives us a very good balance when it comes to our wing play. And then have Mabasa starting as up front. You know, I think he's done very well for Orlando Pirates, and his relationship that he's formed with Pule has been very instrumental to Pirates picking up points in the past couple of games, and I think he could really help this Bafana Bafana side. And when we have a look at it like this, what I like about this is that we become very balanced, because we've got a compact back four, we've got the solidity of the back four, and in midfield as well, we've got Yusuf Mat, who will battle in there. Mukwena, who, whenever Yusuf Mat does need that help, Mukwena can always slot in. And then from that perspective, we're very solid when it comes to our defensive play. And when we have a look at the other side of the coin, whenever we do look to build up play, we've got very comfortable players on the ball who can work it up from build up and work it into consolidation phase. So into Mart and Mukwena, who take care of the ball and nurture it very well, who could then progress the ball into the final third and also into Pule on the wide right side, and then Hlongwane on the left wide side, which is vertical zone 1 and vertical zone 5 respectively. They could also look to find Ukutumela in the half spaces, but mostly in zone 14, because I think having Kutumela there applies that pressure. So we've got 4 goal-orientated players, you know, which will occupy this Ethiopian defense, and they'll always be looking to cause trouble, you know, and Pule, yes, of course, being the more creative one out of these 3. So when we have a look at it like that, I think this is actually a very good balance, and I think this is a team which is set up to actually go out and get us the 3 points, and they are also well conditioned. So that is what I would do going into this encounter, especially when we're playing away from home. However, if there's one thing I would tweak when we do play against them at home, I would look to introduce a Mashego over Ashanti, where we can play a bit more open and a bit more expansive. And another option that you have is a Brooks. Like I mentioned, there's a Lutwalo who's been doing very well. And yeah, so those are the players that could come on off the bench and actually affect the game. So there's a couple of players who have been doing really well, you know. So you've got a Lutwalo, you've got a Mahopa who could always come off the bench. You've got a Brooks who can come into the midfield and add a midfield a midfield 3 if he comes off and plays an 8, which will allow us to play with Brooks and allow us to play with Mukwena as 2 8s and then Yusuf Mott as the defensive midfielder. So we do have options off the bench that we could use to kill off both games. However, going into the first encounter, like I mentioned, I would go with a 4-2-3-1, Ronwen Williams in goals, a back four of Njabulo Blom at right back, 2 centre backs. You've got Rushin Duruk and Lebusa at left back. We've got Hlanti for his experience. And then the 2 in midfield as a double pivot. We'd have Mukwena and Yusuf Mart. However, Mukwena would play as the box-to-box. So he'd go and play as an 8 whenever the game does allow him to venture forward and progress up the field into central pockets of spaces. And then have Kutumela sort of playing as a 10, come second striker. And then off the right-hand side, Pule. Off the left-hand side, Hlongwane. Up front, Mabasa. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my view and my tactical preview of the upcoming encounters that we do have against Ethiopia. I don't think that it's going to be easy. I think we're going to have to battle and we're going to have to graft. However, I do see us winning actually both encounters and picking up 6 points out of this, you know. However, if we don't, we should be looking to pick up at least 4 points from these upcoming World Cup qualifying encounters. Thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Liolo. Signing out.